Hey, folks, welcome to the Accessible Hunter podcast. I'm Greg Trainer along with my co host, Mike Hudson, and we're really fortunate to have a good guest on this morning, Rick Madeja. Am I pronouncing that right,
You
Rick?
did.
Usually I butcher names, so we're really thankful to have you on and hear your story. I know you got a lot to offer, and we're really interested in hearing it. But, Mike, what's going on in South Carolina, brother?
Oh man, we're doing great, buddy. We had our first dove hunt the other day. Opening season banged off, and birds were flying all day. It was perfect. Having some good weather right now. Waking up in the 60s, staying in the 70s, so it's not too bad. I think we're scheduled to get a little bit of rain this weekend, so I don't know if we'll get back in the field or not, but we'll find something good to get into.
It's raining here in PA today, and we haven't had rain probably in 10 or 12, heck, maybe even 14 days. So it's much needed. And our dove season started on Monday along with goose. And I was talking with a couple of guys, and somebody shot like 4 boxes of shells and still didn't get their limit of doves. And I, I always kind of think, man, you have to shoot a lot of shells to get some doves. But I'm not much a better wing shooter, so I can't make fun of anybody on that. Those doves are fast.
Hey, they're quick, man, and as quads, dude, it is difficult to try to get on them. The guys were laughing at me. I busted a couple off of a power line, and one of the guys yelled "cheater," and I said, "Hey, quadriplegic," and they all just busted out laughing. You do what you got to do sometimes, man, and if he wants to sit right there and take it, I'll go ahead and give it to him.
Exactly, Mike. Here in PA, they've started to do managed dove fields. I
Yeah,
don't know if you guys have those down in the south, but man, it really brings the dove in, and the game commission's really managing that property and habitat, to pull the doves in. So, whenever I was growing up, going out dove hunting, we would walk along the railroad tracks a lot and try to get them in the fields and stuff. But they've come a long way into managed property. Um, Rick, welcome to the podcast, man. How are you doing today? You're up in Wisconsin, right?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, you guys are talking about your temperatures. We had a low of 47 last night, and
nope.
I'm actually looking forward to it because our mosquitoes have been very, very bad this year. It's been wet, and getting out in the field soon. I'd like to keep some of my blood in my body.
Um,
Yeah, man, we can relate. We've been getting wore out this year. It seemed like gnats, mosquitoes, all the
Yeah.
bugs, all the pestilence have been wide open, man. But I don't do cold anymore, and so I'm looking forward to fall and maybe a little bit of winter deer season. But I'm
Yeah.
definitely not looking forward to those cold temps.
No, I agree with you. My body does not like the cold anymore.
I'm definitely a fall temperature fan. It's been in the 40s here in the mornings, Rick, and I'll take that over 90-degree days any day because I'm able to get outside a little bit more. And, the high today is like 70. So I plan on shooting my crossbow a good bit this weekend and getting everything dialed in. Our archery season doesn't open up in my area until October 4th. So I got a little bit of time to still get everything dialed in. And
Right.
I've been I've been buying crossbow bolts and broadheads, and I just ordered a new ground blind this week too. So I'm looking forward to some of that stuff. But Rick, for the folks that haven't followed you yet on Facebook and Instagram, you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us maybe a little bit about your background. Just maybe start with how you got hurt, how your injury happened, and then we'll go into your past a little bit.
Sure, sure. My name is Rick Madeja. I live in southeastern Wisconsin. I was injured a little bit later in life. I got hurt at 57 years old. My injury is a little unique in the way of not how it happened, but really what happened with my body. I had a spur that was growing on my spinal column, and it was pointed towards my spinal cord. Um, and I did dive off our boat, and the hydraulic, I did not hit the bottom. I did not hit the bottom. The hydraulic pressure pushed the spur into my spinal cord
Wow.
and bruised it. I immediately knew, as soon as it had happened, that something wasn't right. I was a power lifter, bodybuilder my whole life, so I was a very, very dense human being, and I didn't float. I mean, my body didn't float, and it was everything I could get. Um, Everything I could do to get to the surface, got to the surface, called to my wife. She literally thought I was messing with her when I told her that, I need a flotation device and I was having trouble. She literally was on a Zoom call with her family in Poland showing them our boat, and there was a sailboat race going on. And, so we know to the second when my injury, happened, she was able to throw me a flotation device, get me to the boat. Luckily, the people whose home we were just off of about 100 yards, saw everything going on. They called the rescue squad, and I was able to get to the dock. They had me in the ambulance and on my way to the hospital in about 10 minutes.
Wow. It's always so interesting to have people on. Me and Greg absolutely say this over and over again. We love to be able to highlight new people. But the stories, man, we're hearing in the disability community always ring true. To me and Greg, we both got hurt in diving accidents, and it's always so weird to see that the slightest thing can cause our bodies to go through such trauma. And like you said, Rick, here you are, power lifter, dense, and all it took was just a slight change to have that spur do what it's going to do.
Right.
Man, it's mind blowing when we think about how fragile our bodies are, even though we put a ton of work into it.
Absolutely. And I tell my friends all the time, I did have some things going on that probably pointed towards some stenosis and some things. And
Yeah,
I just kept saying, you're getting older. You beat your
yeah,
body up a lot when you were younger. So what? You can't turn your neck, or so what? Your hands are getting a little numb. And I tell people, if you feel something, go to the doctor, get it checked out.
one 100%.
There's no reason not to.
Absolutely. And, September is Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month. And we really need to advocate for people to pay attention to their bodies, but also, diving is such a risky behavior. I grew up with a swimming pool and diving all the time and never thought much about it. But man, after a spinal cord injury, you just realize how risky that behavior can be.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's one of the other things. I was just with a group of actually anglers that I fished with fished against for years, that are all deer hunters. And every one of them before I left, I said, "Put your harness on, man." I said, "This is not nearly as glamorous as I make it look."
Yeah. Yeah, we joke around and say, "Man, I make the chair look good." It takes a lot of wear and tear on our bodies, man. It
Yes,
just
for
wears
sure.
us out. I did the same thing the other day, Rick. We had a guy that came out to the dove hunt we were at, just got paralyzed last year, fell out of a deer stand while they were setting stands,
Wow.
completely paralyzed at the T3 level. And man, it's always heartbreaking to see the guys and girls that are coming along side us because of injuries. Absolutely. Wear your harness, safety equipment. But you touched on something just a second ago. The fishing tournaments. That's kind of where I was wanting to get to. Man, you fished a lot of tournaments prior to your injury.
I did. At the height of my career, I was fishing around 40 a year.
Wow.
Now, 20 of those were Wednesday nighters. So we used to fish Wednesday nights from 4:30 to about a half hour after dusk. So 20 of those were Wednesday nighters, but the rest were weekend tournaments or multiple day tournaments or championships. I was a bass fisherman. I like the green ones, but I love the brown ones. The smallmouth bass is what it's all about. I my home lake here is it's called the Fox Chain. Fishing on a Fox Chain is better than it's been in 30 years. People are like, I would never fish there. Well, people that say they don't want to fish there is because they don't know how to fish it and they're not good there. Fishing was my life for a long time. I never was a golfer, but fishing was my thing. And then, of course, hunting.
Rick, what's one of the fond memories you have about some of the tournaments? You had to meet some really interesting folks and fishing 40 tournaments a year. Man, that's a full-time job. What's one of your
Yeah.
what's one of your best memories about the tournament circuit?
One of my best memories would have to be, I fished with a young whippersnapper. Well, he's a little older now, but his name was Logan McKenzie, and he was my partner for a long time. And we fished a tournament called the Sturgeon Bay Open. It was a 2-day tournament on Sturgeon Bay, and it was on the Bay of Green Bay. and we caught a 25-pound fish, 5 fish limit the first day. Only put us in 10th place, so that kind of tells you what the fishery is like there. But 25 pounds for 5 fish, smallmouth, is good just about anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man, it's one of those things people don't realize all the places that you can go to, the types of fish that are out there.
Sure.
And man, I absolutely love tournaments. I love, from coming out of the hole right away, everybody's racing to get to where they're going. The camaraderie, dude, is where it's at. When you're sitting around camp or you're sitting around getting ready and just
Oh yeah.
the trash talk, it goes back to what me and Greg love. I love being in the deer stand, but I love being at deer camp and
Yeah, for
being able
sure.
to talk it up. What's the tournament atmosphere like? A lot of people on here don't fish tournaments. So what's the atmosphere around the tournament camps like?
Well, one thing I tell people all the time is that, tournament bass fishing is basically a NASCAR race around
Yeah,
8 hours of fishing. You got boats capable of doing 80 miles an hour, and everybody wants to get to that spot first. It's not a shotgun start. You go out by number, but having the fastest boat, you certainly can beat, the number one boat if you're number 50. Um, so the camaraderie is great. What I can tell you about tournament fishing is if you're good and you're taking everybody's money every weekend, you think that you're hated, but you're not. You're not.
mm,
Everybody likes you. We all try to be good sportsmen about it. Of course, there is a bit of camaraderie, at the weigh-in and the morning of the tournaments. It is competitive.
hmm,
And to be honest with you, there are guys out there that if they don't draw a check on a weekend, they can't fish the next weekend.
yeah,
Um, you know, Everybody talks about sponsors. Well, we were regional guys. We really didn't have sponsors. I had companies that I worked for that helped me with equipment, but I didn't have anybody paying for my tournaments.
yeah,
It was a situation where we were all fishing for our own money. And again, like I said, you think when you're good, people don't like you. Kind of going back to that, right after my injury, my tournament partner Logan, we were also tournament directors. So, we ran tournaments. He put together a benefit tournament for me. I was still in the hospital, still in rehab, and they put together a benefit tournament, and basically bought me my van, the money that was generated. So, as much as I thought those guys didn't like me, I guess I'm an okay guy.
The outdoor community seems like we all pull together to help people when asked. Um,
Absolutely.
there's so many great organizations, and your friends and fellow, competitors took time out of their day. They put that together really fast for you. And
Mhm.
as we all know, vans are not cheap.
No.
And
mm,
if you were able to get a van paid for that way, those are some great folks.
Yeah.
Um, Ricky, you also did a lot of writing and teaching, and you were kind of involved with a lot of things in the outdoor industries itself, right?
I was. So, part of my quote unquote sponsorship was I worked for outdoor companies that were rep groups that repped a lot of different products, whether it be rods, reels, baits. And part of what my obligation was I had to go to sports shows and work. And what I
mm,
liked the best was teaching anglers how to use new equipment. Everybody would come to the show, I really want to try to use a bait caster, but I'm afraid of it, which everybody is. They're a little bit overbearing, they're a little bit difficult to use, and in 20 minutes I could have someone casting with a bait caster. And I love being able to do that. Also getting kids involved
mm.
in fishing and hunting, especially hunting. They're both dying sports. People don't have time to take their kids fishing. Definitely don't have time to take their kids hunting. If you have a mother and a father that never did it, the kids are never going to get involved unless someone else takes them. So
Man, you said a mouthful right there. It is a dying thing if we don't continue to push it forward. But I can tell, Rick, that prior to your injury, man, the outdoors were something special. And I know from my own standpoint, and in talking with Greg, how much it's helped in his healing process. Can you kind of talk us through how the outdoors after your injury has been so beneficial for you?
Well, as soon as I got hurt, I thought, wow, this is it. It's over. I'm not going to be able to do this. You know, pretty early in my injury, I was able to get myself an Eco Rover chair.
Yeah,
Really opened the outdoors for me. When when your chair is your life and it's your lifeblood and it's your legs, you don't want to take it in the woods. You don't want to take it in the mud. You're scared that if something happens to your chair, you're done till you can get it repaired, and that's not a quick process ever. Um, but the track chair and the Eco Rover chair really has opened the outdoors for me. To be very honest with you, I was very, very, soon as I got injured, I was thinking we're going to buy a pontoon boat. We're going to buy a pontoon boat. We're going to get the kids back out, my children, my adult children, my grandchildren. And then I sat back and said, "Whoa, I'm not sure that I'm going to be okay being on a boat."
yeah,
Injury happening on a boat. I didn't want to spend the money to rig up a pontoon boat for myself and then not be able to use it. I was able to fish with an organization this spring. Um, it was early summer that did get me out on a pontoon boat, and I was able to handle it very well. So that's something that we may look at again for next year.
sure.
And part of me having the pontoon boat that would be available for accessible or wheelchair, accessible for wheelchairs. I have several friends that are guides, and my boat would be available to them. If they had someone that was
Hmm.
disabled that wanted to go out, I would be more than happy to lend my boat out to them and get them out fishing.
Pontoon boats are really uh, a great stable platform
Mhm.
for power chair users. I've been on a few of them over the years, and I always felt really safe. Um, you have to worry about the person driving. Sometimes they have to take it a little bit easy, and I always make sure my chair is secure, but my seatbelt is off,
Right,
so that I'm not an anchor if something happens on that
right.
pontoon boat, But yeah,
Absolutely.
you have to secure your power chair whenever you're going out there because you can easily roll, left or right 6 inches pretty easily.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I had an inflatable PFD on, so
Hmm.
I felt relatively safe. We do have some piers here. I live very close to Kenosha, and Kenosha has a very good fishery. The perch we're in this year, and my wife and I had gone down there a couple times and caught some perch. And going up to the edge of a pier that is in 17 feet of water is a little bit disturbing. You
Right.
make sure the chair's off so that your rod doesn't accidentally hit your controller and you end up in the lake. So, but you're absolutely right. Getting the chair secured. When I did go out with this organization this summer, they did take it easy on us. They went very slow, and it was designed for disabled and everybody that came out was in a chair.
You guys brought up something, man. I'm over here smiling because, Greg, over the time, over these years, I've had multiple pontoons or, we've used different assets. Uh, Definitely undo your feet if you strap your feet in. Lateral supports, get those things open. I tell my buddies, I swim pretty good, but I got a 300-pound anchor tied to my tail. I don't want to be in the bottom of, like Rick said, 17 feet of water still stuck to a chair. Give
Yeah,
yourself a fighting chance if something negative happens. But
Right.
absolutely.
it all comes back down to safety harnesses, all of that. Just we got to think better and do better. And after the injury, sometime it just you don't think about it prior to, but after, man, it'll really put you through the ringer.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Then we see some of these videos online and things that I might have thought were funny in the past. I don't find them funny anymore. Or
Yes.
I see a video of someone taking a spill or a fall, and the first thing I worry about is that they suffered an injury.
Absolutely. Rick, what was your experience like at rehab? Did they prepare you for the outdoors, or how did you figure out, hey, I can still do this, I can still get outdoors? What kind of motivated you to go fishing again and ultimately go hunting again?
Unfortunately, during my rehab, it happened during COVID. And it was, I don't want to say I was rushed out, but I didn't get as much time as maybe I could have or should have gotten in rehab.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate with the abilities I do have based on my injury. I'm a C5'7", incomplete. When I first was injured, I was considered complete. I've had some stuff come back, and again, I'm very fortunate. Um, you know, I guess my drive would be is they did have a track chair at rehab. I didn't wasn't able to get in it, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, I can probably do this again.
Yeah. That's one of the things, man. Technology's come a long way. And so Greg and I both use track chairs. They're difficult sometimes for people to get into, definitely difficult for some people to purchase. We get all that. They are our work boots and they really get you out there.
Mhm.
And Cordell's been doing a really good job with these eco rovers. I'm excited to see where we're going to head in the future. But Rick, other than your Eco Rover, what other kind of equipment do you use as a quad for hunting
So
or fishing?
Yeah, so on my chair, on my Eco Rover, I did rig up a rod holder.
Yeah.
We're fortunate enough here in the Midwest, we do have a salmon population.
Hmm.
We're getting into our run now. And the last thing you want is for a 20-pound salmon to pull your rod in the lake, especially with the cost of equipment these days and everything else. So I was able to rig up a rod holder that holds two rods so I can fish my spawn sacks or my live bait and with an open bail. So that's easy for me. And it's just again, I'm very lucky. I do have some decent hand control. I'm able to hold the rod. I do use a rubber band to hold it onto my forearm. It's all about overcoming and adapting,
Yeah.
doing what it's going to take to get you out there. We went on when I went on this fishing excursion. The captain or the guy that was running the boat, and there were some kids out there. They put us in a spot. And I said, can we move over here? And I started catching fish right away. The guy says, "Oh, you're pretty good." And the only thing I could think of was a Toby Keith song. Well, I'm not as good as I once was, but
But
I'm
I'm
as good
better
as I
than
ever
used to be.
was. So, but yeah, even it's even like children, even catching a small sunfish or bluegill was very exciting. It was fun. Um, I I see that there are some things that can be designed and built out there to help other quads, and that's something that I really want to sit down and work with someone to help design and come up with some equipment that'll help.
Rick, prior to your injury, you worked as an event planner, and we're talking about big events.
Yeah.
And you've always had an understanding of accessibility and what people needed to get to the event to make sure they had a good time. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe your experience growing up, um, as far as working with people with disabilities and thinking ahead and how that kind of came full circle for you after your spinal cord injury?
Sure, sure. So, I worked in the Chicagoland area. The companies that I worked for were pretty much in Chicago, and the Chicago Park District has an accessibility office for events. Anything that happens in Chicago has to be accessible. And I can't remember her name, but there was a gal that worked for the accessibility office. She was a paraplegic. She'd roll up in her Prius, she'd get in her chair, and she rolls around the event to make sure that things are accessible. And I would meet with her, before any of the events open. And every time she'd see me, she goes, "Oh, I'm so glad this is you. I know this is going to be easy. There's not going to be a lot that has to be done." And again, understanding the ADA, during COVID, I did a lot of what we call drive-through graduations.
Yeah.
No one could walk the stage, but we'd put up a big tent. Parents would drop their kids off in their car. The kids would walk the stage, and the parents would actually get some pictures. And I had a lot of schools, that said, "Well, I have someone in a wheelchair that that needs to roll across the stage. So I either need a ramp or a lift," and we could do either. Unfortunately, the lifts are very expensive to even rent and install and make sure they're correct. and I tell the school, the principal or whoever's in charge of graduation, the length of the ramp that's required.
Right.
No, I don't need a ramp that long. It doesn't need to be that long. I said, well, according to ADA, it does. And if you're willing to sign a waiver that goes against my recommendations, because I don't want it coming back to me. I don't provide something for someone that is not according to ADA,
Mm,
and they end up sued or someone gets injured. And they would usually go with the longer ramp. There's cost involved.
sure.
Longer ramp obviously costs money, and to build it right, and to make sure that it passes inspection from the fire marshal and everything else. So, again, making sure there's no obstacles that would keep people from gaining access to the event, was very important to me personally as well as professionally.
Man, you bring up a lot of good points again. Rick, we got so much that we need to continue to advocate for, so much push we need to keep doing. ADA is 30 years old now. We need to get some more bite behind it. It's given us a lot of good suggestions, but now we need to put more oomph in it. I like the fact that you're an end user, and then you're able to keep these guys and girls at these locations in check and just say, hey, I understand you don't want or don't think a ramp needs to be this long. As a wheelchair user, I can tell you the steepness of it does make a difference. You're going to want to follow that ADA recommendation. Um, and it's one of those things we have to continue to advocate daily. And it's sad to say there's a lot of change out there that still needs to be made. But man,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Uh, Absolutely. My wife and I took a trip up to Minneapolis to see my beloved Chicago Cubs play the Minneapolis team this year. And we booked an accessible room, and we got there, and the mattress literally was about 36 inches off the ground.
Right.
And I use a slide board, and there was a solid base underneath the bed. So there really wasn't much that we could do. I can't go a foot uphill, with
No.
a slide board. And we talked to the manager of the hotel. He says, "Well, no, we have a roll under sink and a roll in shower." I said, "Well, that doesn't help me. I can't sleep in my chair." And my wife, being the engineer that she is, we actually got some trays that actually are used to wash dishes. They put the dishes in. We actually, because we travel with ramps, portable ramps, we were able to actually make a platform that got me high enough to where I could slide board. We overcame, we adapted, but I got a hold of the chain and I said, you need to take a better look at this. Even if I used a Hoyer, I would not be
Yeah.
able to get it under this solid base. Number one, and number two, I wouldn't be able to get the Hoyer high enough to get myself on the bed. And they took it under advisement. I'm gonna check in with them again and see if they have made any alterations or done anything that can remedy that.
When we travel, Rick, our wives or our family, whoever we're traveling with us, they really have to stay calm and problem solve through a lot of these issues. And, you were fortunate that you had ramps with you, but what if you were flying somewhere and didn't have that access to your
Yeah.
equipment? Um, I don't think people realize the amount of planning it takes to go on a trip to a strange place, to a strange hotel, even going to dinner sometimes. If you're meeting people and you've never been to a restaurant, where do you get in? Where are they going to seat you? Uh, all of that takes planning. And I don't think the average person even thinks about that. They don't have to, fortunately, but as quadriplegics and power chair users, we always have to think about how we're going to transfer from our chair to the bed, using the restroom, using the showers, etc.
Yeah, I had two situations. We traveled to Florida by plane twice, and the airline. I won't mention it because it wasn't a great situation, but contacted the accessibility desk several times before the flight. People don't know, but at airports, it's not airline personnel that helps you transfer to the aisle chair. It's airport personnel. I'm a bigger guy. When they show up with 60-something-year-old frail woman to help me transfer. And they ask, well, can't you get up and
Yeah.
stand up? It's like, no, I'm a quadriplegic. I can't do it. But the story I want to tell is twice now at Tampa Airport on the way home, not on the way. Well, first of all, they put me in the first seat behind first class. Um, the armrest doesn't go up on that seat. So now I
Right.
have to go up and over. I can't slide. And the person at the accessibility desk did not know that. And I can tell you right now that that airline does know that, and that's not the best place to put me. Uh,
Yeah.
but twice now in Tampa on the way home, my chair would not fit through the cargo hold. It was a different size plane on the way home than it was on the
Mhm.
way down. And the first time they were saying, well, we can tilt your chair, tilt your chair sideways to get in there. And I said, no, no, I can't take the chance of my chair being damaged. And we had to wait 4 hours. The second time happened, we were ready on the plane. Everybody else loaded, got on the plane, everybody else, the passengers were on, and they came to me and said that my chair would not fit on the plane. And I actually had to get back in the aisle chair, and be offloaded. And, half the passengers were very, very understanding, and there was some that weren't so understanding, so the airlines need to know the dimensions of the chair and what chairs will fit through which cargo holds. We leave
Mhm.
Saturday for an event down. I'm sorry, on a vacation down in Florida. We're going to go to Disney with my grandkids for a couple days and then see some friends. And we're driving. It's just not worth.
Yeah.
Renting an accessible van adds about $1,000 to the trip.
Yeah.
So we're just driving, taking our van, and gonna enjoy our trip down.
Rick, man, I'm excited that you're on today and we're able to cover some of these things. It's not that we're trying to be negative Nancy or, say that, woe is me and all of that. It's about raising awareness and having an empathetic conversation about all these issues that really overwhelm us in travel. Me and my wife do the exact same thing you just got done saying. It's so much easier for me to fly from here to Dallas if I want to go hunt in Texas for a
Mhm.
2 hour, 2.5 hour flight. I can't take the chance on my chair being damaged. Now it's turned into a 16 and a half hour drive.
Right.
And then, so it's mind blowing to think about all the avenues that we have to continue to push for or plan around. And I'm glad you're continuing to advocate alongside us, and that we're able to highlight some of this. Man, I hope you guys have a good trip. I
Thank
hate
you.
that it's going to be so far of a drive, but it is what it is. Sometimes we just have to, we got to look out for ourselves. What most people don't understand, these airlines damage our booties, they damage our chairs on a astronomical amount of situational um, unawareness, if you will. We can tell them all day, hey, this is my legs. And somehow they miraculously still destroy people's chairs. I just don't get it.
Right, right. I agree with you 100%. We need to advocate for ourselves and other injured people. My wife of 38 years, we've been together 39. My wife had been to Europe 30 times, but had never been west of Dubuque, Iowa. So she
Okay.
said, you know what? I want to go see Yellowstone. So last year, and she pulled the trailer. I have a 5x8 trailer, enclosed trailer that my track chair sits in. She did 5,000 miles in 14 days all the way
Wow.
out to Yellowstone. She's a trooper. She's my sole caregiver, and I give her all the credit in the world. Number one, for staying with me that long. Number two, raising our three beautiful children, and taking care of me, and being adventurous enough to take these trips.
Yeah.
All three of us are really lucky that we have loving wives that take the initiative and figure out all these problems and make it happen. And we're definitely thankful and fortunate to be involved for so long with such beautiful women inside and out, that they see us as individuals and also deal with the spinal cord injury, which is
Hmm.
a daily 24-hour a day situation.
Yeah.
It can
Okay,
definitely
good.
make a difference, man. That's what it comes down to is just teamwork, partnership with your partner. being able to talk through some of these things. But guys, here's the kicker: when we get to the airport, they're just as overwhelmed. When we can't get into an airplane or when we're getting beat down with trying to get onto a bed at a hotel that you got to be part billy goat to go up a sliding board 3 feet, and the hotel staff just does not get it. But our spouses are right there 110% pouring into it. Um, but it's got to be difficult from their level. They're not the end user, but at the same token, they're the facilitator. They're the ones that's
Mhm.
got to get it done.
Right.
Rick, have you been on any hunting trips or fishing trips with some organizations that you'd like to talk about?
I have. So I actually am fortunate enough this fall I'm going to be on two hunts. The first hunt I'm going to be on is put on by Wisconsin River Power. Wisconsin River Power, they oversee two dams on reservoirs here in central Wisconsin. They own 750 acres that sits between Peat and Well flowage and Castle Rock flowage, and it is a wildlife refuge. No one is allowed to hunt there in the fall for 3 days. They bring out 10 disabled hunters. Some are in chairs, some are not. They do have blinds and they take you out to the blinds. Again, it's a refuge for most of the year. So I don't want to say the deer are stupid, but they don't see hunters the rest of the year. Um, so I was lucky enough to draw that, and that hunt will be the second week of, I'm sorry, the first weekend of October, and it is during the disabled hunt, and it's a antlerless or antlered hunt. I can take any deer I want. My freezer's getting low, so we'll see what we see. But yeah, it's a good opportunity to get out. I'm looking forward to it. They do have a banquet for the guys on Friday night, and then they do provide breakfast for you in the mornings, get you out the stands for the morning and evening hunt. So I'm very, very excited to see what they have to offer. I do know the area. It does have some good deer on it. It was interesting when I got the call that I did get the spot. They were asking my capabilities of shooting. It is a rifle hunt. Some of my background was long range shooting. I spent a lot of time out west hunting. 3, 4, 500 yard shots were the norm. And he had asked me, he says, are you capable of shooting out to 75 yards? I said, well, not as good as I once was. I said, but I'll probably limit my stuff to 300 now. He goes, oh, I know where I'm putting you. I said, okay, sounds good to me. So do have that hunt planned. And I also, for the last couple of years, have hunted with an organization called Wheelchair Whitetails. Steve and his wife Christy put on a great camp. Um, Steve owns 600, probably more than 600. I remember I was talking to him last year. He was looking to buy a little more property around Niagara, Wisconsin, which is very close to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Mhm.
He only allows, other than family during the rifle season, he only allows disabled hunters out. He has 14 blinds over food plots. He's got some pocket food plots, and he's got some big food plots. And you basically get out there on Thursday noon, shoot the crossbows. It's a crossbow only hunt. He has crossbows available. He has a lot of first time hunters that come out, disabled first time hunters that come out, and he does allow you to use his crossbows. Takes you out, you roll up on a trailer. It takes you out in his electric UTV, gets you in the blind, and you do see deer. Um, it's just a great situation. All the meals are provided. You get to stay there on camp. He does have accessible accommodations. My wife comes as my caregiver, and I will hunt with Logan, my partner, again this year. I shouldn't say again. I hunted with someone else the last couple of years, but Logan's going to go out there with me. I kind of should know Steve. Steve lives in Sturgeon Bay, and he fishes the Sturgeon Bay Open every year. It's another thing where we probably bumped into each other, but we didn't know who we were until I got injured.
Right.
But Steve does a great job there, and I'm very, very pleased to be able to go out there again. I did hunt with them last year. It was actually Halloween. My granddaughter was born that morning. We went out in the afternoon, and I had one come out. It wasn't the biggest deer in the world, but boy, was she tender. Um, and we got the news that my granddaughter was born, and she was having some issues. She was in the NICU, so I decided to harvest that deer and get home and be able to see my
Right.
granddaughter. But he
Yeah.
had said bucks are eights or better. But then other than that, you can take any deer you like. The thing about here in northern and central Wisconsin is the nights and the days we hear wolves, we don't see deer. The days that the wolves are quiet or had moved off a little bit, we do see deer. So I'm looking forward to that
R-
hunt as well.
Rick, I actually got an opportunity to hunt in Wisconsin probably in, I want to say 2009, 2010,
Uh,
with an organization, United Foundation for Disabled Archers, UFTA, and I hunted in Madison, Wisconsin,
okay.
and it was just a beautiful area. So
Mhm.
you're really fortunate to have all that area to hunt. And you guys have some big bucks for sure in Wisconsin.
There's some good deer here. Our population here isn't what it once was. 20 years ago, uh, they had what was called the T zone, and you could get as many T zone tags as you wanted, and they were antlerless only tags. They were $3 a piece, whether you were a resident or non-resident, and guys were stacking them up like cordwood. If you're gonna use them and you're gonna harvest them and eat them or use them or donate them, I'm all for it. But if you're just shooting to hear the gun go off, go to a range.
Yeah. Man, you bring up a lot of great points, man, and you make us excited for all the different types of disability advocacy that's all over this nation. Bring up two great organizations. I'm excited to see and hear more about those hunts. Rick, if you could hunt anything as a dream animal, what would be on your bucket list,
It would be a bull elk. Um,
dude?
I I have applied several times for a couple of hunts in Wyoming, and I wasn't able to draw, but I've got time.
Yeah.
Hopefully I will be able to draw. I have spent some time in Wyoming. I hunted antelope and mule deer. I have seen elk, but didn't at the time have a tag.
Hmm.
But I would love to take a bull elk, a good bull elk. I know they're excellent on the table, and I don't. Last time I tried to cook antlers, they didn't taste very good, but
No, no.
but I would like to have a nice bull elk on the wall.
It would be incredible for you to get an elk, but I know that's at the top of Mike's bucket list
Oh yeah.
is
Yeah,
elk hunting, and
yeah.
I've had the opportunity to see them here in Pennsylvania, up in
Mhm.
northern PA around Benezet, and they are amazing animals. And I wish you both luck on getting a bull elk.
Yeah.
Um, Rick, I know that we're getting a little long on time here, but is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today that we didn't highlight for you?
I would. So my father was a Chicago policeman, but he also was a gunsmith. He started gunsmithing when he was very young, and I have some very beautiful custom rifles that my father built for me that are in my safe and beautiful. And I have been able to adapt a couple of them to help me hunt the way I am, with my injury. I have one particular Mauser that he had built for me about 20 years ago, and I was able to fit it with a set trigger, and I had a safety changed on it to make it a little easier for me to work. So there are things that can be done, and you can alter your firearms for your abilities, whether you have any hand ability or not. My crossbow, I actually to activate the trigger, I actually use the index fingers on both hands. But putting a set trigger on a rifle, it's a 6 ounce trigger now instead of a 3 pound trigger, and it does
Hmm.
allow me to actually pull the trigger myself. So there are things other than getting special rifles and special equipment that allows you to actuate the trigger or do things. There's something to be said about killing an animal with a rifle that your father built, and I
Oh
still
yeah.
I still hand load. I'm not nearly as fast as I once was. And then there's also something about harvesting an animal with a load or a round that you had crafted yourself.
Absolutely.
Man, you bring up a lot of great points, Rick, and it's always exciting to be able to share time with guys that are passionate about advocacy, outdoors, all of that. We really appreciate your time and you coming on, being able to highlight a lot about getting back outdoors. And you're right, everything we do is individualistic. Get out there, know your equipment, figure out what works best for you, and just be ethical in the taking of these animals. And you again highlight time. Spend time in the range. Know where your rifle, crossbow, or whatever is hitting, and then just continue to get back out. Have a good time.
Absolutely.
Rick, we loved having you on today, and I'd like to extend an invitation to you to come back on after the season and tell us how these hunts went because it sounds like it's going to be pretty exciting for you. And it's not all about what you tag out on, but the stories you tell around deer camp and the people you're with. So, would love to have you back on if you're up for that one day.
Absolutely. I'd love to be on again. Thank you guys.
Thank you.